Coming up on Te Ao with Moana tonight, feedback on last week's episode about conspiracy theories. We meet a talented and thought-provoking artist. And I sit down for a one-on-one with a warrior woman. Let's go. Nau mai haere mai ki tēnei hōtaka. Thanks for joining us. Before we kick off, just a reminder, there are many ways you can watch our show. You can catch us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter and LinkedIn. We've even got our own YouTube channel. Don't forget about Māori TV on demand. Now to our lead story. This year, during our Waitangi Day Mana Wahine special, I hosted a series of conversations with some strong, fierce and kaupapa-driven women. Each reminded us very powerfully that all New Zealanders have much to gain from honouring Te Tiriti and that every day is Waitangi Day. One of our panel has been involved in mobilising people power movements for many years. Flax roots activism, driven by strong, clearly articulated and focused kaupapa. She's of Ngāti Haua and Te Rarawa descent, a mother of 7, grandmother and great-grandmother, who describes herself as blunt. I'd call her straight up. Meet the Mangonui-born, Otara-raised, Kaitaia living warrior woman who says when it comes to tino rangatiratanga, you can't protest all the time. Sometimes you've got to model what you believe. Your group, Te Kawariki, organised a flag design competition from which the tino rangatiratanga flag emerged. How do you feel now watching the tino flag and the whakaputunga flag in some of the anti-vaccine, anti-mandate protests?
You flying that flag, you should know.
Turn it up the right way. It's upside down.
Well, I'm proud of the whakaputunga and the tino flag, the teina. And the anti-vaccine, no, I don't like it. And the Trump flag. I just think rangatiratanga is about a collective gain. It's not about a personal gain. Like when you see all the stories of young people who are refugees and running away from warfare, you see Palestinian kids in there, their houses are bombed, people running away from oppressive regimes. And we're talking about the right to wear a mask. Give me a break. That's not a bloody freedom. It's a mosquito bite.
Hilda Halkyard-Harawira. She's been walking the talk most of her life. Hilda first came to the nation's attention when she confronted a bunch of drunken engineering students at Auckland University. We'll get to that story later. Lover of wakaama, educationalist, advocate for te reo, activist and leader in the tino rangatiratanga movement. But where did that passion and fire come from?
I rank Mr. Chirac alongside Hitler.
Were you brought up in a particularly political family?
Raised in Otara. My father was a trade unionist, he's English. And my mum was just a hard worker and didn't take crap from anyone. You know, I can recall a number of times her taking on people because she'd be standing first in the queue and she'd get served last and we'd get get really embarrassed.
No,
all that sort of stuff. So when those things happen to me now, I just say, I was first.
Did you talk about politics or the treaty?
No, none of that. It was really about making sure there's enough kai on the table, spreading it amongst all of us.
I understand that you did a speech at Hillary College, 1972, the very first Māori Language Day. You got some negative reaction from some of your classmates.
There were only a few Pākehā at our school. Sort of never noticed before. Because when it's saying something about, let me learn Māori and be strong of our culture, which I knew nothing about. So it's just a bit of kōrero and the old fire and the blood started up. They started shifting sideways. These were my really good friends and maybe it just untapped something that was already there.
But there was some quite flash Pākehā British woman in the audience too, wasn't there?
Margaret Thatcher.
Margaret Thatcher would become one of the most polarising Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom ever. Nicknamed the Iron Lady, she championed privatisation, gutted the unions, and even flirted with nuclear weapons.
She was the Minister of Education at the time, and she came up and said, "Oh, we have Welsh people saying the same thing." That's all I can recall her saying. I thought, oh, that's cool.
Hilda Halkyard would eventually return to Hillary College to teach. Active on the Pacific People's Anti-Nuclear Action Committee, in 1987, Hilda, alongside Helen Clark, won a prize from the Danish Peace Foundation. Was there a particular moment that was formative in terms of like stimulating your political activism?
Probably walking through Papatoetoe and someone calling me a black bitch, and I'm looking around to see who they're talking about and realised it was me. But other than that, I suppose that was a defining moment, you know, when my mother said, "Take a look in the mirror. He Māori koe."
Back to that famous image. For 30 years, students from the Auckland University Engineering School would paint crude slogans across their bodies and perform a drunken parody haka as part of their graduation ritual. Hilda was the president of the University Māori Club 2 years prior to what would become known as the Haka Party incident. What happened that led to a court case?
Auckland University Māori students went to visit them the day before to say, "Please stop doing this, you know, this going 25 years. And they just said, no, it was too late. And I thought, wow, all this time, you know, we'd believed this crap that when you learn the tool of the Pākehā, learn how to write submissions, you know, they'll listen. Well, we had a plan that I would go in and read this statement and say, take off your skirts and desist this behaviour, some long kōrero. Anyhow, somebody must have been outside when the plan was on and it changed. So I didn't get to read my speech. You had a couple of fellas just run in and say, take those effing skirts off. So what happened in 25 years was stopped in two minutes.
After members of the group known as He Taua confronted the engineering students, some students were hospitalised. 11 people were arrested and faced 88 charges, including unlawful assembly and rioting. It was a difficult time. And we can look back and say, oh, you know, that was a great set of action. But when you're living in it, there's a lot of people hurt. What do you mean? Lost jobs, police brutality. I think there's only one or two who didn't get beaten up because the cops had worn themselves out beating up the first lot. The whole episode was controversial. Pākehā who openly supported He Taua were abused, while there was a split within Te Ao Māori. Some rejected the nature of the action itself, but also the fact that charges were laid against He Taua. Do you think that was resolved in the end? For us it was. For us it was resolved because the people I call squares, the old people, the kaumātua and queer, they came forward and gave kōrero at the courthouse. They got it. They understood it straight away that it was a cultural attack. Do you think Pākehā got it? No. The media was powerful and we got framed inside that and villainised. As gangs. Gangs, horrible people. And I say today that racism is like kaikuia grass. It spreads its tentacles into the land and strangles the natives. So, you know, you're always having to fight and pull back that kaikuia. I just thought I'd slip that in. The University of Auckland Engineering School has since reckoned with its racist past use of haka. In 2019, the school relaunched a haka that is respectful and taken seriously. The history around that day on campus was captured in a recent theatre production. Coming up after the break, Hilda on Angela Davis, Love and Politics. Now, during that trial, I was at school and about to go to Waikato University, and I was on a bus of students that went up to support you guys. And I remember going to a hui. One of the things that was raised in that hui was the suggestion that there should be no interracial relationship. How did that pan out?
Not too good.
Hilda credits Angela Davis and the Black is Beautiful movement of the 70s for inspiring black women's and Māori women's movements here in Aotearoa. Both movements challenged Pākehā feminists over racism and Māori men over sexism.
We'd have big debates up at Bastion Point about, is it a class struggle, is it a race struggle, is it a sexism struggle, and we always kept coming back. We still suffer as a result of racism.
While at university, Hilda caught the eye of a persistent young commerce student. Hone Harawira and Hilda Halkyard have been together ever since.
Now, I was just thinking about this today. When we got married, Jane Carr and I shaped my marriage vows. And I said to her, I can't say this word, obey. I'll be loyal, love, honour and be loyal, but I won't do this love, honour and obey. And so, yeah, she helped me. And so, and I still think we're married because Hone Carr married us.
Lovely. He's a lovely man. And your relationship with your mother-in-law, has that always been strong or has it had its challenges?
I think she's very inspiring. Not very often I've had to disagree. I find her really a strong personality, When I hear stories about Hone and them growing up, she named all her children Māori names, which is really different, and then going up and making sure they pronounced them before they even started school. She flew up to school because the teacher smacked Hone's hands with the side of a ruler, and she flew up there and broke all the rulers in the classroom. She's that kind of personality.
In 2005, Tita Whai's son Hone won the Tai Tokero seat for the Māori Party, established in the wake of the Foreshore and Seabed March the year before. How did you as a whānau make the decision that Hone would go to Parliament?
We didn't. I just said, you're not going, Hone. Oh, people used to ask before the hikoi takutai. We just say, nah.
It's about time we started looking to a new future. An independent future for Māoridom.
It just unfolded like that. It just went. So you just sort of ended up going with it.
It's sort of a big went though, isn't it? Going into the belly of the beast, some might say.
Yeah.
What were your expectations when you went in there?
We had none because we didn't know what to expect. And so you sort of had to rely on those who'd had parliamentary experience. Like Hone always felt that he should stay an activist and not change and use it as a platform.
6 years after he entered Parliament with Te Pāti Māori, Hone Harawira broke away to form his own political party.
Hone Harawira split from the Māori Party earlier in the year. Now there are concerns Hone Harawira's new party could split the Māori vote.
How did you feel about that split in the end?
Oh, it was hard. Hone's the sort of person that you won't fuddle if he doesn't feel it's right. He'll try and accommodate some things, but he can't accommodate too much.
And then you've got these Māori yelling at each other across social media. That was a hard time.
It was hard for our kids, the children of the movement, but we've gone past that. And one of the things I've learnt in politics, Māori politics, is I learnt from Tita Whai, is you get over it. And I can remember, all our lot getting arrested during the 1981, investiture of Sir Graham and Whina Cooper, and said, don't take the Pākehā.
The tohu.
Tohu, chuck it away. We'll honour you as you're right.
In 1981, Sir Graham received a knighthood at Waitangi, disrupted by protesters. Later, they would become his strongest supporters.
And then, a few months later, Graham rings Titawhai while her kids had just got out of jail and says, T, we've got to work together on a state-owned enterprise. I went, well, the cheek of the guy. And she goes, yes, that's what we do. And they just kept working together over the years.
He mortgaged his farm twice to fight for a better world for all Māori.
The kaupapa is bigger than us. We can suffer a few personal hurts, but, we can't carry grudges. And it was just a political difference at the time. It doesn't mean that we're politically opposed all of the time.
Hilda and Hone were both active members of the 81 anti-apartheid movement. Hilda recalls the 1995 visit of the recently retired President of South Africa to thank protesters. Tell me about the time you met Nelson Mandela and what your conversation was like.
Well, I was meant to escort him into
that cathedral.
Yeah, and I was just overawed. I was just so... I couldn't say anything. I was just...
What?
Koretake. He actually talked to me to say something and then he started talking to someone else. Good on him.
For many years, Hilda was involved in protest at and hikoi to Waitangi through the Waitangi Action Committee.
And then at some stage we decided to move home. It was harder actually because it's like there's a different tempo. Up home it's like, what? What are you on about? We were talking about, breaches of the treaty. They just thought we were oddballs, radicals, oha. But as one kaumātua said, well, they've been singing the same waiata for so long, we better support them.
Hilda has taken her passion for education and te reo back home to Muri Whenua, where she is the key advocate for the collective of kura kaupapa Māori across the north.
How do you put tino rangatiratanga in place? You can't protest all the time. Sometimes you've got to model what you believe.
In 2007, Hilda received what she describes as her Māori lipstick, moko kauai, from a former Hillary College student, Gordon Toy. In 2021, Hilda presented evidence in the Manawahine kaupapa inquiry at the Waitangi Tribunal. If you look back over your involvement in various movements, has the conversation changed?
The governments are still deaf. We've written millions and millions and millions of submissions. We could fill up container loads. So my thing is, we should go for the constitution of Aotearoa, our mokopuna, that we embed he whakaputanga me te treaty in that, to save ourselves a lot of grief, and it should be done within the next 2 elections. And some people are saying, oh, let these Pākehās or the rest of the country get used to do it by 2040, but why should we give people another 19 years, 18 years? Why do they need 200 years to get over their crappy racism? If you can do action with COVID, that's a really bad virus, so is racism.
Aw, that's romantic, eh? There's a side of Hone Harawira we just don't see enough of. Thank you, Hilda Halkyard-Harawira. Coming up next, rapping and the artist who's challenging the social norms. Kia ora and thanks for staying with us. Our next story is about an artist who proudly transcends labels. They're a rapper based in Tāmaki Makaurau, and everything from the music they make to gender identity is a challenge to stereotypes. Welcoming back the wonderful Ximena Smith with her first story for this season.
So how would you describe the music that you make?
I have no idea.
I love the pop shots, mostly yellow bowl, lemon lime, caviar, spread, ice beluga roll.
If you listen to mainstream rap or hip-hop, then you might not have heard of Dbldbl. But in New Zealand's alternative music scene, Liam, also known as Dbldbl, is a mainstay. The cultural hub of Karangahape Road in Tāmaki Makaurau has been Liam's stomping ground for the better part of the past decade.
Before I made music, I was coming to wine cellar now on that side, and whammy all the time. Just, I didn't even really care most of the time what it was. Like, I just enjoyed the atmosphere.
Liam proudly defies easy descriptions and labels. For example, despite presenting as masculine, Liam doesn't identify with the terms male or female. Instead, Liam describes their gender identity as non-binary and uses the pronouns they and them.
Coming out as non-binary, it didn't change much for me. It was just more that I found words or a language or something that really fit, and it just made more sense, and it became an easier way to explain and tell people about who I was and how I saw things. That ambiguity can be confusing to a lot of people who want something very clear-cut, but I just don't feel very clear-cut at all.
Liam's lyrics explore hefty subjects like their gender ambiguity and struggles with mental health through a playful prism of pop culture and childhood references.
Lay back on your tip-top, super soft while I got the brandless sandwich from the tuck shop. 99 cents for the orange-free soda pop. No lips or backwards, 4 square is my backdrop.
I really enjoy heavy laden references and pop culture, very trash, just all the TV media influence come through quite heavily in my writing. All my favourite characters on The Good Wife, and love a Diane Lockhart reference. Like to use those as like imagery for all the things I'm going through at the time. So I feel like rap music just came naturally because it was the perfect outlet and genre to fit that sort of writing, I think.
Dbldbl wasn't the only moniker Liam has made music under. Back when they were first starting out in the industry, they joined forces with fellow rapper Reem Nabani and formed a duo called Heavy, later known as Cool Tan.
I'm addicted to boost out facts. I'm addicted to quick play and chain traps.
She was always, after a few drinks, spouting off some Biggie in car parks to anyone who would listen. So it just became like a natural thing to be like, I'm sure you're writing. Should we do our own thing? That was definitely the first act that was like, that drew a crowd and kind of blew my mind that maybe I could do this.
Before long, the duo went from standing in the audience to performing on stage at all the grassroots music venues Liam loved. They also started to get some airtime on alternative student radio stations like 95 BFM.
Why you always lying? You always lying. Thinking that you Batman, King, call a shrink. Why you always lying?
BFM were immediate supporters, and I think again, because we weren't doing, without sounding pretentious, we weren't doing a very formulaic rap production or MCing. I think we fit right at home there with the Misfits and the Oddballs and everything beautiful about student radio.
Looking back, Liam says the band's early success all happened very quickly.
I feel like we played a handful of times before we got this very spammy looking email from Laneway that was just like, want to play? And we're like, get out of here, you can't be serious. And then that led to an abundance of things like Explore and opening for our idols like Ill Sweatshirt. But yeah, no, we've met a bunch of really cool people. I think the funniest was Ill Sweatshirt and the internet because they were just kids, and that was a crazy reflection. I think we're older than them. But yeah, I think going into it, we were thinking we were these bright-eyed kids looking up to these idols, and then, yeah, they were just goofing around backstage, and we're like, oh yeah, we're old. It was crazy. It happened so quick. But then, even then, I think that was just a kick-off point. I feel like we've both kind of found our sound now.
Liam and Reem are still close, but right now they're both focusing on other projects.
I wouldn't say there isn't anything on the horizon, but there's nothing planned for sure, especially when we're just seeing where life's taking us at the moment.
While Liam has big plans for future collaborations and new music, something that they now have to factor into their music-making process is being in chronic pain. Liam says muscular injuries they've sustained over the years have caused long-lasting nerve damage, which can make simple activities like sitting down or standing up for long periods of time difficult.
Spine, neck, down to legs, through to the feet. It's a real combo. It's more or less everywhere.
Liam says a huge part of the journey with chronic pain has been learning to live with it and manage it, as opposed to making it go away.
Being in constant pain has made all work pretty inconsistent. I'm constantly striving for a regular routine and schedule, but yeah, over the years it's been very stop-start. And I think the main thing is just being able to let go and be at peace with the idea that maybe I might be able to produce for 30 minutes and then that's it for who knows when.
Learning to live with chronic pain isn't the only journey Liam has been on in recent years.
Do you have sort of like quite strong connections to your iwi?
There's definitely a large disconnect there for sure, which I think, yeah, a lot of people experience. I think especially if they're not immersed in that culture throughout their lives. I think a lot of the journey recently has been trying to wash away those guilts and why I feel that way, and just decolonizing my mind in the sense that those thoughts weren't put there by me. You know, it's kind of the environments I've been in.
While Liam says they're not ready just yet to incorporate te reo into their music, right now they feel more Māori than they ever have.
Yeah, I think once I inevitably get onto my te reo journey, then I'll probably feel more comfortable about incorporating more into the music side of me. But in terms of just like who I am and standing proud and just living my daily life, I feel like it's very present in who I am and how I act.
Lovely. And being present is a perfect way to be. Kia kaha e hoa. Lovely interview by Ximena Smith. Now, last week's episode got you all talking online with over 2,000 comments, so many shares. Here's a little snippet from last week's story.
I think once a conspiracy theorist, you're never truly out of it. I think you just pick and choose what you want to believe in, allow into your existence.
As mentioned, plenty of feedback. Maria Roberts said, great guests, and I especially admire the 3 people who showed their vulnerabilities. Can't please everyone though? Shannon Stevens, where's the thumb down emoji? Just another paid, corrupted news channel. Shannon posted so many comments, she's almost earned a top fan badge. Ramari Munro said, I learnt a lot from this program, and especially thankful how at the end we awhi those we know who are coming out of this. Not to be judgmental, hard on them, but to awhi tautoko and give much aroha. Thank you for your feedback. And as we keep on saying with this show, maybe everyone needs to take a breath before they push send. That's it for tonight. Don't forget that you can catch this again online. We want to give a special shout out to our NITV whānau and audience in Australia. Pō Marie.